Everybody, welcome. We are in the middle of a series called A Man After God's Own Heart, the story of David in the Bible. And today is part 8 of this story, and we're going to go to 1 Samuel 22. We started 8 days ago in 1 Samuel chapter number 16 and have just been working our way through the book of 1 Samuel. David is on the run from Saul, and we saw yesterday that he went to see the king. I'm sorry, not the king, the priest, Ahimelech. And Ahimelech gave him some bread. He also gave him the sword of Goliath. But while he was there was a man of Saul's herdsmen, the chiefest of the herdsmen, whose name was Doeg. Doeg. And I told you to pay attention to Doeg. He watched as David came and went. And now Doeg is going to play a great part in what happens today. So turn your Bibles to 1 Samuel 22 if you can, and we'll follow along together. The Bible says, David therefore departed thence and escaped to the cave Adullam. Now we read a lot of this particular cave and hiding place. Several of the psalms that David penned were penned while hiding in the cave of Adullam. He is on the run. Isn't it interesting that God promises really big things to some of these men when they're young, but boy, they pay a dear price on their way to getting to the place that God had promised them. I'm thinking of Joseph, I'm thinking of Daniel, and of course, David here. Verse number, still in 1. He escaped to the cave Adullam, and when his brethren and all his father's house heard it, they went down thither to him. So now these brothers are a little more supportive than they have been in the past, and they come down and they find David in Adullam. And every one that was in distress, and every one that was in debt, and every one that was discontented, gathered themselves unto him, and he became a captain over them, and there were with him about 400 men. Some people have a little bit facetiously said that this sounds like your average church here, right? Those who were in distress, those who were in debt, and those who were discontented. They all showed up to be with David. So what that means is a couple of things. Number one, misery loves company, right? But more than that, when those who are struggling seek a leader that can help them get to where they need to be, and they can also help he or she get to where that person needs to be. So 400 men. David's got himself a nice little army now at this point. Verse 3. And David went thence to Mizpah of Moab. So he leaves the cave of Adullam, and now he's in Moab, and he said unto the king of Moab. Now remember, the Moabites were not friendly to the Jews. They are the descendants of one of Lot and his daughter's children. And so he says, Let my father and my mother, I pray thee, come forth and be with you till I know what God will do for me. He's asking a favor for the king of Moab. Please watch over my parents. I don't know what God's going to do ultimately, but I'll be back for them. Please just take care of them in the time being. And he brought them before the king of Moab, and they dwelt with him all the while that David was in the hold. And then something interesting here. The prophet Gad said unto David, Abide not in the hold. Depart and get thee into the land of Judah. Then David departed and came into the forest of Hereth. So this prophet Gad advises David, probably by the word of the Lord, you shouldn't stay here with your parents. You should get out of here. Verse 6, When Saul heard that David was discovered, and the men that were with him, now Saul abode in Gibeah under a tree in Ramah, having his spear in his hand, and all his servants were standing about him. You're always got to watch Saul whenever he's holding that spear, right? He likes to throw it at people. Then Saul said unto his servants that stood about him, now pay attention to what Saul says here. Hear now, ye Benjamites, will the son of Jesse, that's David, will the son of Jesse give every one of you fields and vineyards, and make you all captains of thousands and captains of hundreds? He says, hey, do you think David is going to make you rich? Do you think he's going to give you property and vineyards? Do you think that he's going to give you promotions of rank? What he's saying is, David can't help you, but I can do those things. I can make you rich, and I can give you property, and I can give you positions. He says that all of you have conspired against me, and there is none that showeth me that my son hath made a league with the son of Jesse, And there is none of you that is sorry for me, or showeth unto me that my son hath stirred up my servants against me to lie in wait, as at this day. So Saul is trying to tighten the screws here on his own men. You know, you guys knew, didn't you? You knew that my son was in a league with David. They'd made an agreement together, but you didn't tell me about that. You don't even feel sorry for me, he says. You didn't tell me that this was going on. Now Doeg shows up again. Verse number 9. Then answered Doeg the Edomite. Doeg is probably the greatest kiss up in the Bible. He is the one that is really working hard to make sure Saul knows that he's around, and he's willing to do whatever Saul tells him to do. And you'll see that in a minute. Doeg which was set over the servants of Saul, and said, I saw the son of Jesse coming to Nob, to Ahimelech the son of Ahitub. So he's ratting David out, if you will. He's informing on him. And he inquired of the Lord for him. He's saying that Ahimelech inquired of the Lord for David. Now, that's not even true. Ahimelech did not do that. But Doeg tells Saul that he did, and gave him victuals. He did do that, and gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine. He did do that. But remember, David told Ahimelech that Saul had sent him on a special mission. And that's why he was willing to give these things to him. Then the king sent to call Ahimelech the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, the priests that were in Nob, and they came all of them to the king. So now Saul calls for Ahimelech and the other priests. And Saul said, Hear now, thou son of Ahitub. And he answered, Here I am, my lord. And Saul said unto him, Why have ye conspired against me, thou and the son of Jesse, in that thou hast given him bread and a sword, and hast inquired of God for him, that he should rise against me to lie in wait, as at this day? So Saul says, You and David have conspired against me. And he mentions the food, he mentions the sword, but he also mentions the going to God on David's behalf, which did not happen. And again, David told Ahimelech a different story. Then Ahimelech answered the king and said, And who is so faithful among all thy servants as David, which is the king's son-in-law, and goeth at thy bidding, and is honorable in thine house? Ahimelech's very confused here. He says, I don't understand why you have a problem with David. Who is more faithful than him? On top of that, he's your son-in-law, and he does whatever you tell him to do. Then Ahimelech continues, Did I then begin to inquire of God for him? Be it far from me. He's denying this accusation, and truthfully so. And so he says, Let not the king impute anything unto his servant, nor to all the house of my father, for thy servant knew nothing of all this, less or more. So Ahimelech completely tells the truth. He does not rat David out for doing anything wrong. He defends David, but he tells him, I didn't inquire of the Lord for him, and I don't even know what's going on here. Look at how Saul responds. And the king said, Thou shalt surely die, Ahimelech, thou and all thy father's house. Saul is actually going to put Ahimelech to death, and Ahimelech did nothing wrong. And the king said unto the footmen that stood about him, Turn and slay the priests of the Lord. That's a pretty heavy order. Because their hand also is with David, and because they knew when he fled, and did not show it to me. So Saul commands that Ahimelech and all of the priests are killed, because he believed that all of them knew that David had been there, and they're going to pay with their lives for not turning him over to the king. First off, seemingly none of these men even knew that there was a problem between Saul and David. I have no idea. Secondarily, some of them didn't even know he was there. And then thirdly, Saul here is acting purely out of anger and vengeance. When people start acting in this emotional state, they don't care who they run over or who gets in their way. They're going to destroy everyone in their path. But the servants of the king would not put forth their hand to fall upon the priests of the Lord. Well, good for them. These men who were commanded to take the lives of the priests, they don't step up. They ignore the direct order of the king, and they will not do that. And the king said to Doeg, well, if they won't do it, let's see if this rat will, this informant will, this kiss up will. The king said to Doeg, turn thou and fall upon the priests. And Doeg the Edomite turned, and he fell upon the priests, and slew on that day 75 persons that did wear a linen ephod. So a score is 20, fourscore is 80, and 85 priests were put to death by Doeg himself. And he didn't stop there. And Nob, the city of the priests, smote he with the edge of the sword, both men and women, children and sucklings, so nursing babies, and oxen and asses and sheep with the edge of the sword. Doeg kills 85 priests, and then all of the men and the women and the children and the animals of Nob, all because of Saul's paranoia and anger. Verse 20, and one of the sons of Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, named Abiathar, escaped and fled after David. So this man Abiathar gets away. He's the son of Ahimelech, and he finds David. And Abiathar showed David that Saul had slain the Lord's priests. And David said unto Abiathar, I knew it that day when Doeg the Edomite was there, that he would surely tell Saul. He wasn't wrong. Doeg surely told Saul. And look what David says, and he's not wrong here. I have occasioned the death of all the persons of thy father's house. And he did. He brought Saul right to Ahimelech. He didn't tell Ahimelech what was going on. He told him a lie that he was going to be doing a special mission for Saul. And Ahimelech and all of his sons and their sons, they pay with their lives. Abide thou with me, fear not. For he that seeketh my life seeketh thy life, but with me thou shalt be in safeguard. And so David tells Abiathar, hey, you're just going to stick with me. I'm not going to let you leave. I owe you a debt. None of this would have happened if it hadn't been for me in the first place. So I'm going to take care of you. So there are several takeaways here. First off, let's do the takeaways from Saul. Look at how he would stop at no lengths to simply destroy anyone in his path that was going to hinder him from getting to David, or not even hinder, just not help. If he said to you, hey, have you seen David around? And you said, no, I haven't seen him. He'd just kill you for not helping. Not Abiathar, I forgot his name already. The priest. Ahithophel, not Ahithophel. That other priest, Abiathar's father, Ahitub's son. He says, I didn't know anything about what was going on, and I didn't inquire of God for him. Saul kills him anyway. And then look at David. David wasn't completely truthful with the priest, and so it ends up with the death of the priest, 84 other priests, and all of the family, his sons and grandsons and so forth, the entire city of Nob, because David wasn't truthful. And so sometimes not filling people in doesn't help them at all. All right, David continues to be on the run. Saul continues to be willing to do whatever it takes to put a stop to it. We'll find out more tomorrow. God bless you. Thanks for listening.